This is me at the start of 2022, and this video of me is at the end of March of 2022, 2 months after I started going to the gym. I remember I posted this video on my Instagram story, and I remember getting so many messages from people. People were like, yo, Beeshmar's like this Jack guy now, Beeshmar's the gym goer. And from that day on, everyone just knew I hit the gym. And you gotta realize this is 2 months into the gym. Now the reason I bring this up is because I want to emphasize that the progress is not bound by time. But most of your gains, 80% of your gains, come from that 20% of the time where you're really locked in, you're really focused, you're not missing every day, and you're pushing yourself as hard as you can in the gym. Yes, I understand there is a lot of noob games. I don't deny that. Noob games definitely play a role. But I remember being very, very locked in and very, very motivated. COVID had just finished, and me and my friend, we were really amped up to do something meaningful, to build something meaningful. And so that's why during those first couple months, we made good progress. A lot of people say that getting jacked takes about 2 years of time and dedication in the gym. But I would say that the real answer is getting jacked takes as much time as you need to build all of that muscle up and cut down the fat. That's the real answer. That's exactly what you need. Now, to be fully transparent, in my case, it did also take about 2 years, but I made so many mistakes, so many critical fundamental errors. On top of that, in the first summer, I basically lost all of my gains for soccer. And I believe that if I could go back in time and do it all over again, I could achieve the same results or even better in a shorter amount of time. In this video, I'm going to tell you the key takeaways I had from that time when I made that transformation from a skinny nobody to a jacked beast, and all the fundamental errors that I made and all the things I would have done differently so that you can achieve that result way faster. If you want a short, concise checklist of all of these main points and all the key things that you need to focus on, all the things that you need to filter out, be sure to check out the link in the description below. I have a free checklist that's going to cover all of these so that you can be confident in gaining your next 15 pounds of muscle mass. So there's a lot of big mistakes. I remember at the start, it was all of the common ones. We were not, committing to the bulk. We didn't want to, get fat. We were big beer drinkers and, partiers at the time. And, we didn't want to, overload on calories and just become extremely fat. I think we liked to play basketball a lot at that time too. So we were always skinny and very active and very athletic. So, and I think all of us were really afraid of losing that. But if we just had committed to that bulk right off the bat from day one, how much different our progress would be now, how much more jacked would be. It'd be crazy. It'd be crazy to imagine. Or maybe we would have just gotten it faster. Maybe we would have finished our journey half a year or even a whole year earlier than we needed to. The next big thing is legs. I remember we started on push-pull legs. It was really fun because okay, this is the first time we're following something where it's okay, cool, a unique routine. We're doing different stuff different days. We're not just showing up and bench pressing every single day or doing bicep curls. It's actually a routine where we're following a plan that's going to get us to a destination we want to go to. But I remember we just did push-pull, and then we would skip we'll be we'll do legs at home or something like that. And so we never ended up actually doing legs seriously. We didn't do the squats or any of the leg machines. And it's the same reason most guys do it. It's just not fun. It doesn't feel good. And you don't get that nice pump as well. The truth is though, that sooner or later, it's going to catch up to you and the legs are going to bottleneck your progress, as it did for us. I understand, legs aren't fun and, they're boring and they're painful, but it's just part of the gym. You just got to get it done. You just got to do it. So next we got is ego lifting. So a big part of the gym and the fun and excitement was seeing ourselves progress and, seeing ourselves progress really fast, seeing those numbers go up, being oh my God, we're 50 pounds away from 2 plates or whatever, we're 75 pounds away from 2 plates. Whereas, 2 months ago we were 100 pounds or whatever the case may be, right? And so it's really fun, and it's also really, exciting and challenging to always be pushing yourself to the maximum and doing as much weight as you can. The issue is that especially when it comes to big movements, like the bench press, especially when you're trying to build muscle mass, you're trying to, grow in size and look, aesthetic, you want to look jacked. Focusing on lifting as much weight as you can is not going to get you closer to your goals. It might make you a little bit stronger, but more than likely, it's probably going to lead to plateaus, it's going to lead to injuries and regressions. And it's definitely not the best way to contribute to your overall size. I remember me and my friend, we would always try to max out, we were always pushing each other to, do as much weight as we could to see, who can do more weight and, can we get to that next milestone? Can we get to that next breakthrough? And, it's understandable, we were young and we were, we didn't know too much. And, we had a lot of excitement for that to happen. If I want to go back and get jacked as fast as possible, I would avoid those mistakes, but I would also focus on these 4 key philosophies. You need a massive amount of volume. You need a very high training intensity level where you're really pushing yourself every single time. You need a massive surplus on the back end. You want to be eating big. You want to be eating like your muscle and your growth depends on it. You can either grow or die. Think of it like that. You need to be eating to grow. And the last thing is you need recovery. Remember, you only grow on your rest days. You only grow when you recover. You don't grow from actually training. So you need a lot of this in order to see the progress actually go onto your body. A lot of people, they don't train hard enough. They train, with not enough volume. They go home and they don't eat big. They're focused on refining their diet. They're focused on, eating like chicken only, just like I was, even I was making these mistakes. I was training low rep ranges with low amount of sets. I was focused on, strength work and ego lifting and, focusing on doing like sets of 6 reps even, which it's not optimal for growth. I would train hard on the exercises that I liked, like my favorite exercises, like bench press, cable rows, bicep curls. But I didn't train my hardest and push myself on other exercises that I didn't like, such as, overhead press or any shoulder variations or pull-ups, those kind of exercises I didn't like. So I didn't push myself hard on those. When it came to eating in a massive surplus, I didn't do that. I did the most common skinny guy mistake, which is instead of focusing on eating for growth and eating really big, I just focused on trying to eat as lean as I could. I focused on eating only chicken and, only like meats and cutting out oils and worrying about the color of my rice. Is it white rice or brown rice? And all these things, they slowed my progress down significantly. And the last thing is my recovery. So I was much more in the habit of just showing up every day. I was I was really amped to go to the gym every day. I had the energy and it was the biggest thing to look forward to in my life at the time. And so I would be excited to go every day. Sometimes I'd skip rest days. I was doing push-pull legs. So I'd go 6 days a week, 7 days a week, whatever. I didn't really grow too much. And a lot of times I would end up tweaking things like my back or my shoulder or something. And I realized that, once I started taking the proper rest days, I was seeing much better growth and I wasn't getting injured as much anymore. And that got amplified even more when I went to the 4-day upper lower routine. I was only going to the gym 4 days a week. That's when the recovery really started to kick in, and then everything else dialed up because of that. So again, I would avoid those key mistakes I told you at the start. No bulking, no legs, no ego lifting. I'll focus really hard on the 4 key fundamentals. It goes without saying though, you got to be fully committed to it. If you're not fully committed, if you're not making it a priority, if you're not ready to jump fully into the process of becoming a jacked person, if you're bulking up, building muscle mass, you're not likely to see the results you want to see. You got to fully commit in order to see this happen. It's a very deliberate process which requires, key sacrifices, key things that you need to do. And so, if you're not willing to bulk or you're not willing to show up every day, even when you don't feel like it, you're not willing to push yourself hard every day, then it's going to show up on your results and you're going to end up getting nowhere like most people do. The last thing I say is, it goes without saying, most people already know this, but you got to be consistent. You can't be missing days. It goes without saying, if you're missing days, you're not going to make progress. Once you're not a noob anymore, once you get past the noob gains, if you miss days, you're just not going to see real progress. There's nothing to build off of. You're just going to end up not getting anywhere. Anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up this video. Like I said before, if you want a checklist of the most key fundamental things you need, as well as some of the things to avoid, be sure to check the link in the description. It's a completely free checklist there. And it's got about 20 points that you should follow. If you can tick off each one of those, you can be confident that you're going to gain your next 15 pounds of muscle mass. With that being said, if you like this kind of content, subscribe to stick around for more. Like the video if you did, and I'll see you in the next one.